Laolu Akande joins us now. He's the host of Inside Sources and former presidential aide. Good morning. Thank you for coming on today.
Good morning. Good to see you guys.
Let's start with that defection from on the floor of the Senate yesterday. We know we've spoken about the scenario politically, but from the way things are going, even though he has to move to the ADC, look, can we expect any meaningful challenge from opposition, and given what you've seen about the preparations for the elections?
Well, I mean, a meaningful challenge, the way you put it, is actually desired. You know, I even think it's an imperative for a sustainable democracy, and that's the reason why, you know, all of us must add our voice to the enlargement of the democratic space. And I think that there is still opportunity, you know, for the opposition to put their hands together. And in my view, one of the things that ought to be clear by now, even from the opposition, and now I'm talking about the ADC, is that they are not going to, the presidency is going to stay in the South. And that is one of the ambivalences that is affecting the true emergence of a serious opposition. Because we still have, you know, the shadows of Alhaji Atiku Abubakar, you know, who wants to run, you know, by means. Nigeria has gotten to a point, in my view, where the question of regional presidency has become national consensus. And it's not wise, you know, for anybody to try to undercut that. The opposition to begin to see that they present a credible, you know, somebody from the south of this country who has some experience in governance, in public service, who can go head to head against President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Then, you know, you begin to create potentials and possibilities. But as things stand now, if you keep on getting the vibes that Atiku wants to do it, by all means, he will probably be able to, you know, forge his way through by some means, you know, because he seems to be the most, the strongest politician, you know, in the party.
No, so, but are they going to Justice Rotimi Amici?
Well, you know, in my view, if they were serious in ADC, people like Rotimi Amici, you know, people like Peter Obi, ought to be the ones to be pushed forward. I mean, look at Amici. Amici has been a speaker, he's been a governor, he's been honorable minister.
He was second in
tremendous,
the APC.
Tremendous career in politics, opportunities in service, second, as you said, in the APC. And he was the guy that was in charge of the infrastructural development, which was one of the high points of Buhari. Absolutely not. But the shadows of Atiku is still hanging heavily on the ADC.
I was just going to say that basically what you said, that Alhaji Atiku Abubakar is the strongest politician that they have in the ADC, continues to be the argument point continues to be the argument point for those who say that you put your strongest foot forward in a race such as this, that they do not think that those considerations of rotation should affect what it is when you have a strong candidate, a really strong candidate. They do not believe that rotation should come into those kinds of considerations.
It is the strongest in terms of the fact that he rose to become vice president, just so I'm clear about it. It's not the strongest when you look at his age. It's not the strongest when you look at his record. There are better candidates. We just spoke about Rotimi Amici. Look, clearly, an opposition to Bola Ahmed Tinubu, you must change the vision. You cannot beat Bola Ahmed Tinubu. You must change the paradigm. So you need fairly new faces, younger faces to do the job. Atiku cannot deliver it. And you know, so when we say he's strong, we are only talking to the fact that he's been vice president, and he has quite a bit of stash of money to spend, you know, in getting through, which is what has always happened, even in 2023. So the point is that the best candidate that the opposition can put forward is not Atiku Abubakar. They better put forward Amici or put forward Peter Obi.
But when we say the opposition, sometimes it appears as though we're glossing over the PDP Or are you? Because it appears as though they're putting the house in order.
PDP has glossed over itself already,
Yeah.
you know. And
but they have a convention, they say, is in March as well.
That's a factional convention of the FCT minister who is just having a little party of his
No,
own.
but yesterday they said they're all going to come together now and come for the common front.
The truth of the matter is that if anybody expects any serious contestation from the PDP, with the presence and the influence of Nyesom Wike, it's a waste of time.
Is that at the presidential level? Because there are other positions.
Yeah, well, I'm talking about the presidential.
Okay.
Yeah. You know, I mean, it's a waste of time. You know, there's no use expecting.
Yeah, but in fairness, I thought he has himself to the look. For the presidential level, he's not going to support a PDP candidate.
Yeah. So
for other positions,
yeah, of course,
give your best shot.
I imagine that PDP still has a very good chance, possibly in Bauchi, where Bala Mohammed is, or possibly in Oyo State, where the governor, Sheyi Makinde, has done an excellent job, by the way. So it's possible if they get their local politics right. But we don't even know which of the factions is going to do the nominations to INEC. That is the core problem. Don't forget that this has happened before. For instance, in 2019, the APC could not present a candidate that was credible and that met the credentials. I mean, that was when Dauda Lawal should have emerged. But Yari messed him up and the party lost. And somebody who did not win the election became governor. It has happened before. So that's the problem. And that is why you must think of people like Eme Ono, people like Dauda Lawal who needed a second term. They couldn't really risk some of those dysfunction in the PDP.
Well, here's what we're looking at now. Defection, 87 senators in the APC, 261 reps in the House of Representatives for the APC. And then we're also seeing that the position of Senator Inaya Baribe seems to be hanging in the balance. I'm sure you must have watched the drama yesterday, because a lot of Nigerians have been quite upset about this. They believe that, what are they defecting about? You have explained why people will defect from the PDP. Clearly, there is a division there. But in the other parties, there are questions as to why are they defecting? Because this defection seemed to have started even way before this crisis got to a head. But yesterday, we saw the Senate President raise, issues about the seat of Senator Inaya Baribe, and he said clearly that's Senator Baribe the of division within the party. However, from my party, seems to be silent on that particular instance. What did you make of that? The fact that that even came up at all, because it would seem that this has just been the season of defection and nobody has ever raised this particular issue. Yeah. Was it a surprise to you that it came up when in the case of Senator Baribe?
Well, I think it's just an indication of the fact that Senator Baribe is one of the more progressive, senators in the National Assembly. People who can, to a very fair and reasonable extent, stand up against, folks like Kwabio and the rest of them. You can't really silence a Baribe.
But do you think we're trying to victimize him then?
Well, maybe not victimize, but it's somebody that that you really have a reason to try to see whether you can throw a clog in the wheels, Okay. But I don't think it's more than that, really.
Were you surprised when Taiwo Oyedele's name was submitted to the Senate, nominated as minister?
Okay, well, since we are we
still
have
politics.
The truth of the matter is that Taiwo Oyedele was the one that was supposed to be the Minister of Finance, Minister of State for Finance.
From the get-go?
No. When the first cabinet reshuffle was done. As a matter of fact, the president had already penciled his name before his decision was taken to bring Doris to that position, and then Taiwo was asked to to hold on for a while. But the more important thing about Oyedele's appointment is that it shows, it's a flicker of hope that the president is still concerned about governance. Because look, Taiwo Oyedele is one of the best demonstrations of technocratic expertise. You may disagree with some of the things, but you have a lot to agree with that he does and that he says. The fact that we have to reform the tax system, it was folks like Taiwo Oyedele that made it happen. So I am excited, that Oyedele is coming to the cabinet, and I expect that, he's going to get quite a lot of stuff done. There has been a lot of rumors about Edun.
Yeah, but he's Minister of State, not Minister.
Yeah, but don't forget that before Taiwo Oyedele was appointed, the president had shifted some of the responsibilities of the substantive Minister of Finance to the Minister of State. That's what happened, because there's a lot of cloud around Edun.
Yeah.
I mean, I think Edun is trying to stay. I know that the president has asked him to step aside, for several reasons. So
it wasn't a rumor.
It's not a rumor. I mean, look, these things happen, and it's out there. But I say that Edun doesn't want to go, and the president needed an effective person in that place. That's why they brought Taiwo. Don't forget, like I said, he has always wanted Taiwo in that place. So I expect that Taiwo is going to be driving more of what is going to be happening in finance going forward.
But why do you think that they had to bring Doris Anita before he then came on?
Well, I think it's a political chess game. Doris was scheduled to be dropped, at that time, but the president changed his mind. Yeah, but the president changed his mind. And don't forget that Doris is the first time you're going to have somebody step down from substantive to Minister of State. Normally people won't accept that. It's a little bit of demotion. But to her credit, she wants to serve, and she seems to understand quite a bit of the work. But that was the politics. That was the politics, and that was why they stepped down Oyedele at that time, because they wanted to give Doris another opportunity. And that's why I know that Oyedele coming in now is going to be taking charge of quite a lot of stuff. So you don't think there'll be
clash between Oyedele and the minister in terms of policy? Because I
think ultimately Edun is going to step down.
We'll see how that goes, but I'm a little curious as to how do you think, because we heard the minister speaking very recently as to how Nigeria intends to handle the fallout of the battle between Iran and the U.S. and Israel. Clearly, we can see pump prices responding. Price of crude oil has been up and down, but it's settling above $100 per barrel. So on the one hand, it looks like we're going to be profiting, but on the other hand, Nigerians are going to be feeling the heat at the pumps. Not just at the pumps, but also in terms of food prices and everything else that follows with that. How do you see that matter, or how would you advise the federal government to intervene in this particular issue?
Well, so this presents a double-edged situation, because we can make more money selling fuel, selling crude oil, and at the same time, it's also going to affect the prices. But I think it's an opportunity for us to further enhance our energy security by trying to do more of local refinery. If all we are doing is local refinery, if we are doing significant local refinery, then we will be maximizing the opportunity for what is happening. The reason why we can't maximize it is because there's still a significant amount of importation of fuel. So what I will suggest to the government, two things, is that, look, let's try to speed up, local refinery, and then there has to be some kind of negotiation between the regulators and the people in the sector, not to be calm, to calm down about how these prices just go up. Some of their stock is already, is something that they bought in the past. But of course, the way they think is that, well, what's the replacement cost, and that's why they jack up the prices. Yeah. But there's a leverage for government to say that just calm down.
And they don't always like they don't like that room, the sellers.
Yeah, because they want to make money.
So maybe there's also room for FCCPC here, because we also hear that they're watching. Yeah, they are moving to prevent petrol price manipulation. So it'll be interesting to see how the FCCPC is able to help in this instance.
Let's move quick.
And I think that, talking about FCCPC, I think we have to give them a credit. Because I have experienced that after FCCPC went after the airlines, the prices of the airlines have dropped. I've seen it. It's quite exciting. If we have a lot more effective regulation in this country, if the regulatory agencies do their job, you know, Nigerians are going to have a lot better time, and we must give SCCPC a nod, a kudos.
All right, thank you for coming on, Laolu Akande.